Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the channel. It's time for another match reaction. Aberdeen 0, Celtic 1. Let me cut to the chase. It wasn't a great match tonight. It wasn't the most exciting watch. In fact, it was quite a brutal watch at times tonight at Pittodrie. But Chris Sutton said something very relevant that stood out right at the end of tonight's game. And that's without games like that, and without being able to grind out results in games like that, you don't make yourself champions. You can't get yourself to league titles without being able to grind out results on the horrible wintry nights against teams that can be seen as banana peels or stumbling blocks. But Celtic done that tonight. And Celtic done that while taking one massive step to being champions of Scotland for the 4th year in a row. For some, the conversations are starting. The chants, they were certainly starting at Pittodrie in the away end tonight. And for many, that might be it. Celtic might be champions. Let's talk about that. Like and subscribe, all that jazz if you haven't already. It would be much appreciated. Aberdeen 0, Celtic 1. Celtic extend their lead over second place Aberdeen in the Scottish Premiership to 7 points. Should they win their game in hand over Aberdeen, we'll be 10 points clear of the second place side. We're already 11 points clear of third place Rangers. I'm a big picture guy on this channel. I'm not so much about all the deep analytical conversations, the data. I'm about the big picture. And the big picture tonight in Scotland is that the title race done before it even got truly started? Are we talking about Celtic being champions of Scotland by the 4th of December, before the turn of the new year in the 2024-25 campaign? We are potentially talking about 4 in a row before we even got to the 25 part. Celtic have been ruthless, and once again Aberdeen can't find a way to beat Celtic, and they can't find a way to beat Celtic when we weren't at our greatest. And that's why for me tonight, I'm not shying away from that conversation. Usually, every year I would sit down at this point and go, listen, let's not get carried away. Let's take it a game at a time. When we're champions, we're champions. But Celtic are a team that right now, who even when they turn up at 50% of their optimum abilities, they are beating teams. They're winning games. Rangers and Aberdeen are the next best thing in this country to Celtic Football Club, and they can't get anywhere close to Celtic. Not at our best, and not even at our worst. So those conversations about Celtic being champions already, they're warranted. They aren't big-headed. They aren't arrogant. They aren't ignorant. Why shouldn't Celtic fans be thinking that this league title isn't ours? Who has presented a challenge to us this season? We dropped points once so far in the opening, however many games we've played right now. 14 games or so. It was to Aberdeen at Celtic Park. It was a lapse of concentration. Do I see Celtic conceding 10 points, 11 points in this title race from now till the end of the season without Rangers or Aberdeen dropping any more points or conceding any more points? Absolutely not. And I think that I would just be foolish to say it. I don't want to jinx anything, and I'm not going to bang on about this for the whole video. We're not having the title celebrations on this channel quite yet. But Celtic right now are a different animal. This is the best start to a league season I have ever seen as a Celtic supporter. And that's not me saying that through recency bias or heat of the moment stuff. I truly don't remember Celtic having a better start to the season. And do you know why I don't remember it? Because it's impossible to find. Not even the invincible season of 2016-17 was as good as this. We didn't get to the 4th of December in the position that we are right now. We have better results right now. We are unbeaten. We've dropped points once. We're scoring goals for fun. And even at our worst, teams can't get close to us. So, drink it in. Enjoy it. Rub it in the faces of your co-workers who may not support Celtic, because this is our time. And don't let anybody tell you that we shouldn't enjoy it. We absolutely should. And I'm sure the ones that are a little bit older than me, who've lived through times that weren't as successful, will be enjoying it just that bit more, you know. But I've had a very privileged and spoilt life supporting Celtic, and long may it continue. Because nights like this, I'm thankful for them. I'm grateful for them. Let's talk about the football, shall we? It was a brutal game tonight. Not an awful lot to talk about in terms of match highlights. You know, I can't sit down here and talk about events in the game that had me on the edge of my seat, or moments that were game changing, because generally it was a quiet game from an attacking point of view. Nobody really spoiled us with football brilliance tonight. It was one of those games where it was clear that Aberdeen needed something. And for a large portion of the game, I would actually argue that Aberdeen looked like the team who wanted the win more. And that's because they needed the game more. And I'm not going to use that as an excuse for Celtic. I'm not going to use that as a way to take away from any of the positives Aberdeen showed tonight. I'm sure there's plenty of Aberdeen fans who come on here and want to hear me say good things about their team. But they looked like a team that maybe wanted it a bit more than Celtic tonight. It took us a while to get cooking, and especially in that opening 45 minutes, I just think Celtic weren't really there at all. But a lot of that was down to how the game went. I thought the flow of the game was really choppy, and it was really start-stop stuff. A lot of that came through I thought the kind of hammer-throwing football that Aberdeen were showing. They were just taking this to the ground at any opportunity. They were going right through the back of every Celtic player and fouling every 2 minutes. Celtic just couldn't get into a rhythm. And I thought in the first 45 minutes, Aberdeen probably looked like the most threatening side. Our football in the final third just wasn't good enough. And I think that extends into the second half, or the first part of the second half anyway. We just weren't clicking in the final third tonight. Now, it wasn't anything overly concerning to me. You have those nights, and I think the conditions probably played into that as well, but it just wasn't clicking in the final third. I thought from the back line into the midfield, we were doing more than enough, and we were playing well enough, but there was just something off in that final third tonight. Nobody that started that game in the front three really stood out for me. I thought Maeda had a poor game. I thought by all accounts Nicholas Kuhn had a rare poor game for his standards this season. And Kyogo, I wouldn't say had a poor game, but he didn't have the service. He didn't have an awful lot to do. A lot of the balls that we were sending into the box were going straight to Aberdeen players, or we weren't beating the first man. We just couldn't find our flow. And a lot of it was too slow. You know, it was a really slow performance from Celtic, I thought, in that opening 45 minutes, especially when we did progress into the final third of the pitch in Aberdeen's defence. It was all too easy for them to deal with it. Very predictable. Dyson Maeda he would either have a poor touch of the ball or run it out of play. Nicholas Kuhn couldn't make his final decision. He was taking too long, and he'd run with it too long. There was just so many things that it wasn't synced up. You know, it was almost as if we were playing with a laggy controller, if you like. There's some youth talk for you. It was like we were playing on a lag. Just something wasn't clicking for us, and we really struggled to find a flow in the game. I think a lot of people in the first half were highlighting Rio Hatate's performance, which I do agree was poor. I don't think he had a great first half, and I was actually surprised when the substitutions started that he was kept on the pitch over Paulo Bernardo, who I thought was better in the midfield three in that first half. But I don't think it was as bad as what some people are making out. I don't think it was incredibly bad. I think he still played a couple of great balls, and I certainly seen positives from Rio Hatate's game. But yeah, he was maybe the weakest part of that midfield three, because I thought McGregor and Bernardo had a really good game. Bernardo again showing why he could be a constant conversation for starting every week at Celtic. And defensively, we were fine. Aberdeen did get their chances, but I thought we nullified them pretty quickly. I think Cameron Carter-Vickers and Austin Trusty, from a defensive point of view, had a really good game. From a defensive point of view, I thought Alistair Johnson had a good game. But the first half was just brutal, wasn't it? It wasn't an entertainment. It wasn't entertaining, I should say. It wasn't an entertainment. That makes great sense, right? But yeah, it was just, I don't know. Something just wasn't clicking, and it kind of did carry on into the second half. Before we do get into the second half, I'm sure that you probably want me to talk about some of the refereeing decisions, but in the now that we've won the game, I don't want to spend too much time dwelling on it. I'm not one of these SFA conspiracy people, and I don't want to continue that trend that some do. But yeah, there was a couple of questionable decisions. I thought that the corner that was a goal, Bernardo, great corner by the way, great delivery. I don't really understand why it was disallowed. I thought it was really, really light on Ross Doohan in goals for Aberdeen. I didn't see enough for a foul. And I guess that just kind of leans into that conversation we have constantly all the time at the minute as to whether or not goalkeepers are overprotected. You know, as soon as you lay a finger on a goalkeeper, it's a foul. And I don't see enough in it, personally. And then right before that, we have the handball, which, I don't know, man. Like, it doesn't even get really checked either. And I'm like, well, the Aberdeen defenders effectively saved it. Should it have been a penalty Celtic? I don't know. I don't feel so strongly about it, but I don't think it was given enough conversation. I don't think it was looked at enough. And the other one that stood out to me was the clash with Ross Doohan. Kyogo's clash with Ross Doohan, which was given in Aberdeen's favour, or was it given in Celtic's favour, I should say. I don't think anybody really got the favour of it, but I don't know, the goalkeeper comes out, and I know it's a bad clash, and I'm glad that Ross Doohan's okay. I think first and foremost, I want to make that clear. I'm not going to sit and scream and shout for a penalty when the boy was nearly knocked out, but he's the one that's rushed out and put himself in it. What's Kyogo meant to do? You know, like, is Kyogo meant to levitate? Is Kyogo meant to take flight and make sure he doesn't... Like, he's came in and effectively took Kyogo out. I've seen penalties for less. I'm not saying it should have been a penalty. That's not what I'm saying. But once again, I thought that there was a big meal made of it, and Celtic had more of a legitimate claim and towards a foul. I don't know. There was some questionable decisions in the first half, but as I said, it was really stop-start. Game just couldn't get going, and we needed change in the second half. Second half, it was more of the same, as I alluded to. I think it took Celtic their time to get going. The substitutions really did help. Luke McCowan, again, great performance off the bench. I thought one of Celtic's best performances of the night, to be quite honest. He brought a nice injection of pace, of urgency into the midfield, which I think was maybe lacking. And I thought there was a lot more fluidity between the transition of midfield to the final third that was certainly missing from the first half of the game. And that was all down to Luke McCowan, I thought. I do still think that they made the wrong sub, but and obviously in retrospect, Rio Hatate got the goal, so maybe it wasn't. But I genuinely thought Hatate should have been the one hooked, and Bernardo should have been kept on the park. Nonetheless, we'll come to the goal in a minute. But I thought his presence made a difference. I really thought Adam Ida's presence made a difference as well. He was unlucky not to score one or two tonight. Some good saves from Ross Doohan. I thought he was better and more effective. Maybe just more suited to this game tonight with the physicality that Aberdeen brought to the park. And I just thought most of the subs made Greg Taylor. Fair play, Greg. Listen, a guy that's come under a lot of criticism, but I think he's got a huge part to play in Celtic's better performance in the second half tonight. Let's talk about the goal. Greg Taylor with a lovely ball over the top to Rio Hatate, who finishes it beautifully. It's a really nice bit of football, linked together well, and it started by Greg Taylor with that great ball and finished by Rio Hatate. Greg Taylor, I thought, was really good, both from a defensive and attacking point of view. You've seen right at the end of the game, Greg Taylor make a couple of vital interceptions when Aberdeen could have got dangerous and could have scored goals. So he deserved... Look, listen, if we're quick to dish out criticism nowadays to Greg Taylor, we should also be quick enough to give him out the praise. I thought it was a great performance from him when he came on the park, and I think it's so easy for a player in that position to maybe down tools, but never once would I expect Greg Taylor to do that. I think his attitude is brilliant, despite everything that's going on at the minute surrounding his status as a first team player, or a starting 11 player, I should say, and his status about his contract. You know, you see many times in football, times where players just they don't keep going with it, and Greg Taylor has never given me reason to believe that he's not trying. Yeah, some of his performances might not be good enough. I look back to Bruges and I think to myself he was rotten on the night, but it wasn't through fault of trying. You know, he really did give it his all, just like he did when he came on park tonight. And I think that was a huge difference maker for Celtic. The same with Luke McCowan, the same with Adam Ida. I think the subs had a massive part to play, but things just started clicking a wee bit more towards the end of the game. I think Celtic certainly could have had another couple. 1-0 was maybe a bit flattering on Aberdeen at the end, but they did have their chances. Great finish from Hatate, great ball from Greg Taylor. It was a huge goal. I mean, defensively, we had our work cut out for us at certain points of the game. That huge, that kind of, you know, Austin Trusty, I thought he had a good game defensively, but he had a couple of dodgy moments tonight, but we made up for them. Cameron Carter-Vickers, that huge block from Trusty's bad touch. It's things like that, man, that can... And listen, we're in a position right now, we're incredibly lucky to be in a position where Celtic, let's be real, can afford to drop a point or two, right? I'm not going to beat around the bush about it. You know, we can afford to drop a point or two, but you don't want to. And imagine it was still really close. Imagine there was only a point or two in this at the minute. Imagine Rangers weren't that far behind. Those are the kind of blocks, those are the kind of moments that do send you to win league titles. So I thought that we played well defensively. I didn't see too much stress. I didn't exactly get worried when Aberdeen went forward with it. We just had to find our goal. We bided our time. It came, and I think that Celtic in the end were deserving of that. Overall, as I said at the start of the video, and as Chris Sutton mentioned towards the end of the game, it is the type of result and it's the type of performance that's what makes champions. And it's the biggest, and this is what, listen, I'm effectively going to come out and say it right now, and I said this the other night, I'm not going to hide away from it. I think the season's done, the league's done. And I'm not scared to say it. Listen, if somehow, if fate wants to try and tempt me here and turn things round and make me a jinx, cool, whatever, that's on Celtic and a monumental collapse if that happens, not me. So don't come at me, come at Celtic if that happens. I'm pretty sure we're going to win this league. I've lost the point that I was going to make altogether. But yeah, that was it. That's the difference right now. And that's why I think Celtic will win this league. Because this is the kind of... We've seen this kind of game a good few times on the other side now. Rangers have been in games like this where it's been an absolute stinker. There's been no quality in the game. There's been no quality in the final third. And they've ended up dropping points. With Celtic, it just doesn't happen. You know, it evidently doesn't happen. We literally have the numbers to back it up. We go and win the games, and it's just something that Rangers can't do at the minute. I suspect by the derby, I know Rangers got a massive 6-0 win tonight, and they'll be thinking they're going to win the Champions League with a few of the results of recent. I think this gap could be wider come the derby. I really do. I'm not saying it's going to be, but there's a chance of it. And Celtic are just got to keep going because they're a well-drilled professional machine. Brendan Rodgers has got them to this level through hard work and his training and his methods, and they're not going to give it up through any form of... We're not going to get too comfortable, you know? We're not going to get too comfortable, but hey, we'll wait and see. Right, I've yapped. We're going to talk more about this game tomorrow on the channel, so until then, please make sure to hit like and subscribe. It would be much appreciated. Let me know your thoughts in the comments section below. But for tonight, that's me. Thank you very much. I'll see you all next time.